Alright, welcome back everybody. This is going to be part 8 of this tutorial, and this is me deciding to go back and actually try to attempt and fix some of the issues that were on the model. So what I've done already is not a lot. I just brought the same mesh in and I cut them in half because our left side was our good side. I did bring them into the scene that has a skeleton here. This is an existing skeleton from the game. It's already been animated for most of the game, so I'm going to need to put him on that skeleton. I don't think I will be showing that in this series at all, just because I don't think it'll totally apply to everybody. But the one thing I wanted to fix was that part of his leg where the UVs were pretty much broken there. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to add a UV modifier there and come in here and try to figure out what part of the model. I already know where it is, but just for now, I'm just going to select faces and grab one of these faces. And you can see, if I hide my map here, that this part of the model got peeled down. It didn't know what to do because I never actually detached this part of the model. So if I don't go by element here, I grab that piece and I hit F3, you can see that that's his calf, and that it's way too small and it's getting pinched down all crazy. So I need to fix that. The easiest way to do that is to highlight this window and hit Control D, and that will split it, and then just hit the peel on it. Okay. Now it's still going to be really small. Let me show my real view here. If I pick the checker pattern, it's kind of hard to tell unless I were to select everything and scale it up real high. You can see that most everything else shares an okay grid disbursement, but right here on the back of his calf is way bigger. So let me undo that. And one way to get this to be the right size is to just select all and hit this tool here, which is Rescale Elements. And if I do that, unfortunately what happens is everything else gets rescaled, and I don't want to redo this guy completely. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this up a little bit, hit Control A, and then hit Rescale and see what happens. See, it got a little bit smaller, so I'm going to undo that and shrink it down just a hair, then hit Control A, and then undo and see what happens. So I need to scale it down just a hair more, Control A, and now the amount of change that it does is pretty slight. So if I make this really big and then I hit Control A and say Rescale Size, it's going to blow everything else out to try to average it. So let me undo that. So it's one way to kind of cheat. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be okay. Now if I scale everything up, you can see that the grid disbursement here is a little bit better. I know that the UVs on the legs are also a bit, like down here, it gets kind of bad, but on the model that part's not that bad. But even though this got like crazy stretch and a weird disbursement, the pixels for the paint actually got placed in that, with that in mind. So it basically adjusts for itself. The reason I need to fix the calf part, because this part was dramatically smaller, so much to the point where the texture just, I couldn't even get any detail on it. So that's what I'm going to fix. So let me undo. And now what I want to do, and this can be a little rough, is I don't want to break too much of the other stuff. There's parts of this model where there's some level of hidden geometry. If I move this out of the way, you can see that, like underside here, which is actually inside of his calf, okay, if I come in there, is this piece here. Now this part is pretty much hidden geometry, so in essence I can actually delete it from the model, but it's really only accounting for, I don't even know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 polygons or so. It's not impactful at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that out of the way, And I need to find a spot for this where I can fit it. And this spot here is good. The other piece that's here is, let me get the whole element, the top of the sock here. Now this is going to be easy to repaint, okay, because it's just a solid green. So that's why I'm not too concerned about moving this. If I were to move this, which is his butt, that's going to be hard to deal with. I'd have to redo the texture for the bump map on it pretty much completely. I definitely don't want to move any parts where I've done the fur, because that took a little while. So I'm going to try to find a spot on here that is the least intrusive in terms of what I'm going to have to repaint, because no matter what, because I'm redoing the UVs, I'm going to have to repaint something. But this is going to fit nicely right in there, and the size is now matched better to everything else. And now let me find a spot for this, just somewhere in an unused place that I don't really need to worry too much about. The other spot that was messed up, let me hit Z here, was a couple of polygons on his ear. Let's get up in here. Was actually these 3 polygons, and probably that one too, were messed up here, and you can see that these are very small compared to everything else. So if I hit Control D and detach that and then peel it, it fixes the UVs, and then what I can do is I can actually just make it a little bit bigger to fit everything else. Now the ear is not unwrapped great, but it's also an extremely irregular shape, and the texture laid on it okay enough for me to accept it. If I were really worried and this was needing to have an extreme level of perfect precision quality, I would split it probably down this loop here, and then split it a couple more times to get it so that I can have a little bit more flat unwrapped pieces that are going to work out a little bit better. But in this case, I'm not real worried about it. So I'm just going to move that over. This is going to obviously need to be repainted, but it's going to be real easy for me to just come back in with the projection brush and fix that. I'm not real worried about it. But the main thing I wanted to fix was the back of his leg, and that is the part that I have done. So with that done, and I think I'm happy, I can probably now start running some tests to see what's going to happen. And the other thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to recapture the normal map. And I'll show you how to do that after the fact, because it is quite handy to be able to do this. So what I'm going to do is just take the unwrap, close that, and I'm going to collapse 2 here, and then I'm going to hit it with symmetry, and I need to hit flip. Then I'm going to collapse 2. Now because I need to capture the normal map, I need to put the UVs over again. Which means I need to come here, if I go VR for the right view, let's get this out of the way. Make sure back face is not selected. Let me hit G for the grid so I can have a line to align myself to. And I want to get that right side again. And then what I can do is come here and zoom in, hide the map. Oops. And see if there's any spots that I missed, such as these. Okay, it's real easy to see that something is missing here. So it looks like I missed a piece of the tooth. Let me hit the perspective view. You can just hit P for that. You don't hit V first. And let's get up in here. See, I missed a few on the nose. So I just hold Control and I add that. I missed a few on the teeth. So that one there. Potentially missed some of these triangles on the back of the head, but it doesn't look like it. Let's run down his back, make sure everything's good, and then let's check the end of his tail. There's a good chance I may have missed something here. And I did. Okay, so just click, click. Let's if I move this out of the way and then move this up, I can hide the seams here. So let's go inside of his tail, move this out of the way, see if there's anything down this line I missed. Doesn't look like it. Now what I can do is hit F3 and spin the model around, take a final look. Did I miss anything in his neck? It doesn't look like it. Did I miss a triangle in his mouth? Looks like I'm okay. Now if I show over here and I kind of zoom in and do a little pan across, there's something here. So let me hit Z, and what I can do here is grow the UV selection. Actually, let me undo that. Let me see if I can't spot what this is. It looks like a piece of the nose, so I'll undo that, and you can see I did in fact miss these two. Okay, so I think I've got everything now. Quite confident in that. And now what I'm going to do is make sure absolute relative type in is highlighted here. I'm going to move it over one, and then I'm going to hit the mirror, and I'm going to flip it back. Okay, now if I go and do select inverted faces, only those weird ones are going to show up, which again are not broken. I don't know why this happens sometimes, but it does. Those polys are not flipped. So I'm confident here that everything is good. So without collapsing this, I'm going to export this as an OBJ. Okay, it's off the screen, but it's OBJ. So there was to Mudbox and there was to Paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this fixed to Mudbox. Don't bother me about that. And then I'm going to open up the UV window . And I think I can pretty much just undo that. And then I'm going to export that because I don't want it mirrored like that. Fixed to Paint. So I have two new OBJs. Didn't I say don't bother me again? Okay. So now what I can do is I can save this scene and I can swap over to Mudbox. Now I have been having issues with my system's performance, so I have to close Max and open Mudbox separately. I can't really have them running at the same time because everything just kind of goes to crap on me. So I'm going to pause while that happens, because it is, like I said, it's lagging, and the rat scene will take actually quite a bit to load, and the reason for that is because it has 30 or so textures applied to it, and they're all 2048, so it's got to load all that stuff. So I'm going to pause while I do that. Okay, so here we are in Mudbox. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the object list, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call this Recruit ORG for original. And then what I'm going to do is import my fixed to Paint. Keep this mesh I'm going to hide the recruit original and just highlight that, and let's go to display and get rid of the mesh errors. Now you can see he's pretty much the same. However, the spot where I fixed the ears has got the new UVs. Okay, these places need their fixes. So let's do that first. Let's go to fur. And let's go ahead and hide the boot for now. And I'm going to use my projection brush, and I need to get all these loaded. Just drag it over and let it lag, and then you're clean. Get my fur texture here. I'm having issues seeing it. So let's pick a different stamp and then that stamp. Okay. If that ever happens, remember that's an easy way to kind of fix that. And now let's hide while we're sculpting. Let's hide the sock layer. Okay. Hit 2 to get our options here. I don't want to use a stamp. Let's go ahead and blend that back in. You can see our resolution is now working properly. Let's pick a little bit of a darker area. Don't need to go too far down here because it does blend into the sock. Let's hide our normal map. Let's go to flat lighting. Let's try to get a better blend. Again, we are a little lower resolution above it, but not to the point where it's really going to be broken or anything. Okay. Okay, let's reshow the sock layer. And let's erase that from here because the UVs took over this spot. Alright, it's looking alright. And now let's hit U to unhide everything. And let's hit V to select the boot. Control, Shift, and I to invert that. Hide everything else. And now let's go onto the sock here and sample a color. We'll use the regular paintbrush. Just hit 3, then you can sample that color. Let's check my advanced settings here. I am on regular paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an X here, and then hit Alt-T, A. And just fill that in. Alt-T, A. And then I'm just going to point right here and hit F. Okay, so the sock is fixed. I haven't done the normal maps yet, but I will. It's going to be a separate file. Let's hit U to get everything unhidden. And let's fix his ear. shrink my brush and zoom in. Okay, hit 2 and Q. Make my brush a little bit smaller. Still not great resolution. Need to hide the ORG there. And paint on this guy. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's not so fuzzy. Probably needed to be scaled up a little bit bigger, but I'm happier with this than I was on the other version. Okay, much less noticeable. Can't even see it. Figure on screen he's not going to be too much closer than that. I somehow lost what I had done with the sock here. Can use a pretty large erase brush because I'm not touching the sock object, which is a separate mesh. So let's go ahead and fix that again. Don't exactly know why that happened. Control Shift I, H1, make an X, Alt T, A. I can just make a large brush and fill that in. Alt T, A. Let's see what's going on here. Let's unhide. And we'll hide the original one. Now in this case, because I think everything is working out alright, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that object so it doesn't get in the way anymore. Show our, come out of flat lighting. And our leg looks okay, but the normals are broken. That's okay for now. Come back to layers here. For paint, if I just click on the object, it'll bring those back up. And what I want to do now is duplicate this fur selected. I'll make a fur copy too. And come in here, drag this down on top of spec base. Okay. And then what I want to do is adjust the color on this guy. I'm going to desaturate it and then lower it down to, it was like roughly -80, which is 20% black because it went from 0 to -100. Okay. The fur blends is already on top of that. And then I also need to make another copy of it. Duplicate selected. And move this to the bump map. Okay, there's fur copy there. I'm going to put it on top of that. And then let's adjust the color. Knock saturation out until we are happy with how dense it is. I'm going to go a little bit higher, about 20%. So now is for fur is going to be a little bit deeper than I had it originally. You can see the fur here is a lot more specular. Let's hide that. So isolate it for a second. Now unisolate it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually fix this. Using a stamp like this. I need to rotate that. Don't want to randomize it. Let's shrink our brush some. Just kind of match the tones there, which is mostly just knocking that specular out. Okay. Okay, you can see that the fur is going over the shorts because I had originally merged them all together. So where are the shorts? Let's dupe that. And move that to specular. Put that over the fur. That's going to give us a pretty gnarly green, so we'll adjust the color. You would not desaturate your specular channel colors if you wanted to save the specular values. Let's go about 85 there, 15% specular. And then let's create another duplicate there and move that to the bump map. What I tend to use, because I'm putting my specular in the alpha channel, see, I just need to put that over the fur. I can pretty much hide. Actually, this fur layer can now be deleted. Because I put my specular in my alpha channel, I'm just using the values. I'm only controlling its strength. I'm not controlling its color. If you need to control its color, then you would actually keep your specular maps colored, and you would have to, in that case, export out a a different set of textures that are colored, because you can't have color in just one channel. It's just a grayscale image. So if you really, a shortcut that you could do is put your specular maps in your alpha channels and then do a multiplier combination with your diffuse layer to actually pick up some of that color. But what you got to watch out for is that things like, say, like the nose and whatnot, that will actually that will need a special case and so a little bit of trickery, because if you multiplied it with the diffuse here, that's black, so you wouldn't have a shiny nose. So just some things to look out for. And again, you can see that some of these bump maps, when I get far away, look like I'm creating seams there, but they're really not there in the end. So I'm happy with my actual diffuse, bump, specular. Now I need to fix my normal map, which is a completely separate file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file and I'm going to go over to the other one. I'm going to pause it while I... Okay, so here we are on the sculpt file. This is where we last left it off. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that normal map. Now if I page up, oh, let's page down, Control Shift D. Ah, stupid Camtasia and its dumb stuff. Go to the options here, Control Shift D. I need to check all these so that when I go up, I am smoothing the positions. Okay, I think one more is my highest. Alright, 3 million, 3.2. Alright, there's my sculpt. And if I go to my object list, I'm going to rename this original object. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it source org to signify that it's my source, but it's also my original. Okay, and then I'm going to import the fixed to MV here. Keep this mesh, and I'm going to go to display, don't show mesh errors, and you can see that that's my new version. And if I look at the UVs, for some reason, there they are. I just highlight the object. You can see that's the spot right here that I fixed the UVs at. So this mesh has good UVs. So now, oops, what I want to do is go to UVs and maps, go to my extract operation, normal map, and let's go ahead and shrink this guy into view. Okay, target models. Source is correct, but this one I want to remove and I want to add selected. So I got rat recruit. If I click levels, there's nothing there. If I click levels here, you can see I can choose which levels I want. I am going to still use subdivision because they have the same topology. I haven't messed with that. This time I'm going to give it 8x anti-aliasing just to see if that does anything different. I'm going to keep the name the same. I'm going to call it NM, and that'll give me U1 V1 and U2 V1. This original texture actually will not get written. It will not write a file named this if you have a second UV tile. It will go straight into writing the U2s and V1s. So keep that in mind. So my original normal map is going to be safe. But if I want, I can just say org just to make sure that I'm safe. Okay, it's saved there. Go ahead and preview it. And I did not change the topology. It blooped at me and said I did, but I did not. Although, however, because I split it, I think that the vertex numbers are borked, so we're going to have to do a different way. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to Mesh, Transfer Details. Okay, source model, target model is going to be rat recruits, the new one. The source model is going to be the level 5 here. And I'm just going to see what happens if I leave everything else default. Now what it's going to do is it's going to sculpt this based on my other one. Now this could come up with errors. And it's going to take a minute here. You can see that it's processing. It's got to do all the different subdivision levels. So while this is going, I'm going to pause it. It's not going to take more than a minute. Okay, now it's done, and you can see that it's broken. And now I know what the problem is. It's the whiskers and the nose. If you look here, if I hide the rat recruit, it doesn't have the whiskers and the nose. So I accidentally exported it with the whiskers and the nose on it. So let's see if I can get away with not going back to 3D Studio. I'm going to delete that object. I'm going to import it again. Fixed to Mudbox. Keep the mesh. Let's get rid of the mesh errors. And using the faces, which is just hitting V, I should be able to delete that. And I also need to delete the teeth. keep in mind it will not let you delete those if you have higher subdivision levels. You have to do it on the base level, and it can't have higher levels. So something, if you need to delete parts of your mesh before you start working, you have to do that before you sculpt. So it's this stupid mesh errors thing just keeps popping itself open. Now let's see if doing that will actually allow me to just transfer the normal map without having to resculpt. So I'm going to add all and add all. Okay, target is my rat recruit, so I can remove the source. Source is the source, so I can remove the recruit. Keep everything the same. And let's see if it's going to work. It looks like it is working. So, yep, that was the problem. I've accidentally included the whiskers and the nose and the teeth in there, which I really didn't need and didn't want. Okay, so I had done a couple of other things, and I ended up losing the audio on that. Camtasia has been giving me issues. I don't know, in one of the videos I noticed that the audio actually desyncs itself. I didn't find it to be all that drastic in terms of what it was breaking or anything, so I just left it as it was. I do apologize for that. I know it's weird that my typing and clicks are off, but all I did here was just bring in the normal map. I cleaned up a couple of things, like in the mouth and things like that, but other than that, I just used a clone tool. I didn't do anything special. And really the only thing that's left on this whole thing left to do is just to go ahead and pull these back into Photoshop and prepare them the way I showed already, and bring them into UDK, and that should be it. We should be done. So I hopefully this helped on you know, some okay ways to fix, you know, if you have problems and you don't realize them until too late. There is hope. You can still fix things if your normal maps are giving you issues. One of the things you can look into is re-sculpting, transferring details to a new mesh. Sometimes that can save you. I didn't need to do that, so I'm not going to show that, but look that up if your normal maps are still not working out between two models that, you know, now have new UVs. So that's it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and give me some comments and likes, and if you want to subscribe and all that. So this is HipPaws signing off.